and welcome to our first episode of DVA BOSS TALKS. And today we have our amazing special guest, Nastassja, the artist.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Excited to be the first.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for coming and being willing to take part in this. So, as I found out today, which inspired us to go ahead and make this real, the first interview, is that you are an amazing artist. And no, really. Like, this is the level of humility she had when she said it. She's like, I do a little art. Then she shows me her Instagram, and I go and look, and I'm like, a little art. I'm like, oh my goodness. She made a 3D sculpture of a woman with bantu knots, and it was pink, and then she had pink braids like under, was it the neck?
It kind of like was extending from the neck into the torso, so it was like the braids were the body.
It was so dope, and it was beads.
Yeah.
It was so pretty. So, what inspired that piece of art?
So the title of that piece is called Passage, When Mama Lets My Braids Flow Down My Back. A lot of my work is inspired by West African practices and ceremonial practices, and I love West African mask, and I came across this mask that had these like coils around the neck, which I ended up like mimicking with those faces. But I also was like really interested in who the people were that were depicted in these masks and sculptures that we see, and like thinking about the word worship and how we oftentimes worship the wrong things and the wrong people, and like what does it mean to worship the people around you if you like think about that word differently. Like if someone's really close, or the interaction that you and I had today, like if we're thinking about the current definition of the word worship, it's like, oh, why would you worship a stranger? But it's like we both gave each other
Compliments
something
and
today that
was
like
exchanged.
is gonna go for like past this interaction of me sitting in this seat today. So I feel like those are things that we should like treasure and like hold close to us. So then I started making work in the spirit of like West African mask, but of people that I know. So that face of that pink girl is she was my mentee. I was her mentor. So we created like this really special relationship because I was sharing so much with her, but she was sharing a lot with me. And I was thinking the passage, when Mama Lets My Braids Fall Down My Back, and thinking about like rites of passage and what that means when we transition from childhood to adolescent or teen or whatever, and like what those signifiers are. And hair is a big thing, especially for me. Like I remember I could only get certain styles as a little girl, and then once I got older, it's like, okay, now you can straighten your hair, now you can get longer braids. So like these pool of braids flowing down her body are like, that's the moment where she transitioned into an older age, and like this community of women, Black women, coming to like create this moment for her. So that's where that.
Did you say rite of passage? Yeah.
But so the title is Passage. It just takes the word passage, and then when Mama Lets My Braids Fall Down My Back. And like thinking about if there was a thing that happens, like what if we did put together a moment, this would be the sculpture that would be there, and we would kind of like come and celebrate this little girl.
That's so dope. It's deep, and it's like I really like things with intention. That's the space that I feel like I've been in lately, is things having a lot of intention and purpose. Something you said, you were saying that worship. So is it more like communion? Is that what worship is in West African culture? Is it like just communing with each other and exchanging, or
so,
what is that mean?
So when I say worship in regards to like that series of work, I'm more so talking about like us coming up with a new definition. Or like not thinking about the traditional, because obviously when you think about worship, you think about going to a church, you think about like worshiping a particular God, but that's not the only people we do worship. We worship Beyonce, we worship City Girls, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like people we don't know, and although like music and that form of art, I think it contributes a lot to our lives, I think that we are doing the people close to us a disservice by not like honoring what they bring to us. So that's kind of like I haven't defined the word worship, but it's really like me challenging the word worship.
I like it.
Yeah.
And I think that in this day and age, more people are more open-minded, you know?
Yeah.
And more spiritual in a sense of like they create their own spirituality. It's more about flowing and growing and learning, exchanging, and just becoming a better person versus an actual religious practice and stuff like that.
But I wonder if people, are they more like open to figuring out new things, or do we just feel more comfortable to like say that? Because like I feel like our grandmothers, or maybe not on like the majority, but I feel like there's always been pockets of people who like wanted to like shift and like break out of like tradition or break out of like the norm of the way things are. But I don't feel like it was like okay to talk about it. It's like no,
taboo.
Right. Like, no,
you were the
we're
rebel.
Christians over here.
Yeah. You get excommunicated from the camp. They're like,
yeah,
you know.
Or even like outside of religion, I think that like like when I talk to my mom or my stepdad about like how they think my brother should raise my nephew or anything regarding like child raising, it's like they have a set idea of like, this is how this goes. Boys do this, girls do this, men do this, women do this. And I feel like our generation feels more comfortable being like,
free. I do what I like. What I
came up with that word.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Like if you want to say social constructs and gender roles and all of that kind of stuff. To a degree, I feel like it, in some respects, it keeps things from being chaotic. But at some point, it's like I think there's a fine line, and it's like a balance that has to be achieved with it, because it can get ridiculous.
Yeah.
It could go overboard and just be like, well, what is the limit? What is acceptable? That's when you delve into the things that are really, really bad and actually harming people.
Yeah.
You know, but you know.
I think that like, child, we're gonna get into it. Deep conversation. I think that like I feel like that conversation is not black and white. Like it's not this or that.
Situation specific maybe? Yeah,
well, I just think that like I do believe that obviously biologically there are certain things that differentiate us, but at the same time I've heard my dad tell my nephew like, don't suck your thumb because girls suck their thumb, but it's like babies suck their thumb.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or, oh, we don't want him to do gymnastics. It's like, well, gymnastics isn't gonna make him gay.
Right.
So it's like that's what I mean in terms of,
and there's some very
like,
well-paid gymnasts
exactly
in the Olympics.
So I think that like it's like it's a hard conversation to have, especially with like an older generation of people, because they're just like they understand a certain way of living and a certain way of like genders, and I think that when they hear us talk about it, they think we're just like throwing out the water of like, man, well, it's like, no, it's not necessarily the case. It's like, but this person might enjoy doing this thing, and that doesn't like interfere with
their ability to be who they are. Like in the physical sense, if you want to say, or whoever you're saying they're supposed to be.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, so with your art, when did you start? When did you like find out, when you realize that you had an interest in art first, and then when did it become something that you chose like as a career choice?
Well, I normally say I've been an artist since I popped out, but realistically, I think that I've always enjoyed like making things with my hands. My mom used to be an artist. She doesn't practice it, and she never really went past college, but she still has her portfolio from high school, and I would like look through those drawings with her, and I was like 3 or 4. So I think like this introduction to seeing marks on paper that weren't a coloring book, that weren't like, this is for a child. It's like, oh, this is what I like doing, but it's like you were doing it, and she kept it in the portfolio, and I couldn't touch it. So I think that like, even if I couldn't articulate it, I understood that those have value. So I from there, I just have always wanted to do something with art. I was always like excelling in an art class, and I was like, I want to do more of this. And my parents were really good with like, if there was a program that was specifically for art, letting me do it, and not being like, oh, this is a hobby, this is an at-home thing. It was like, no, you can do this for real at school. So I think that like just was like this domino